So let's talk about this Timberwolves and Mavericks game. Yesterday we saw the Timberwolves and the Mavericks face up, and it was honestly one of the better games that I've seen in a while. I watched most of the game, and I do think that there was a clear, pattern in this game, which was very good to see from the Timberwolves end. As much as I do want Dallas to win, I will say that just because I do think that Luka Doncic deserves to be in the finals, and I think that he would maximize the opportunity as a superstar because I do feel like the Timberwolves, even though they said that they've lost enough, I do feel like they are not ready to go to a final and they would not pose the best matchup against Boston because Boston is a team with much more experience, much more poise, and much more control over their emotions and the way that they play, in my opinion. I do think that in terms of the finals, I want to see matchups which are actually interesting. As much as I already want the series to be over, it is a 3-0, and when the 3-0 happens, that just kind of makes me like appreciate the games, but not appreciate the lore as much because it's like I know which team is gonna win, or at least historically, no team has ever come back from that. So, in my opinion, when it comes down to these types of moments, I do believe that there is a consistency to the Mavericks which has to be studied. This I say this because, in my opinion, the game yesterday was in Mavericks' hands, and Luka and Kyrie both played like trash. Luka missed like 4 straight threes in the fourth quarter, and he had a terrible game in my opinion because if you really watch the way that he played, apart from the statistics, you could have seen that he was extremely inefficient, and he got most of his opportunities from the line. I don't say this to hate, and I do think the three that he made at the end of the game was a great one, but that three was never going to put them in a position to win. Because in my opinion, I think that the way that the Timberwolves handled the game was in a much better way than what the Dallas Mavericks did. I want to say shout out to Anthony Edwards. He had a damn near triple-double with 9 assists and 10 rebounds and 29 points, and he was really the star of this game, playmaking consistently for Karl Anthony Towns, which just turned on the beamers for the fourth quarter, and then being the kind of the player which made the whole team come together. Even when he was out of the game, you felt his presence. He had the best plus minus out of anyone on the Timberwolves, and what he did in terms of the shooting and the shot making, like he shot 13 times and he got 25 points. So Cat in this game was absolutely phenomenal. Even if he fouled out on that three from Luka, it was just what it was. And honestly, that I want to say that was one of the better moments of this game. Karl Anthony Towns being able to finally have his moment inside these Western Conference Finals. I believe that Jaden McDaniels played great. He should have gotten more touches. I think that if he would have gotten more touches, they would have won more convincingly because he was extremely efficient and played really well. I think that Mike Conley also, in terms of being the point guard for the team, really balled out, and I really liked the way that he was bringing the ball up the floor and letting Ant do a lot of the playmaking because it caused them to force mismatches, to force switches, which maybe they would have not forced without Mike Conley allowing Ant to have that point guard role. And for Dallas, I believe that this was a game that you actually kind of look back on with some type of happiness. And the reason why is because you shot less free throws than the Timberwolves. You shot worse from three, right? And you shot worse from the field. And you guys were only 5 points away from winning. And that's what I say about this game. It's like Kyrie had a bad game. He had a down game. In the fourth quarter, he did turn on the beamers and was able to score a lot, but he had an off game. Daniel Gafford had a great game, a lot of rebounding, but in my opinion, in this game, there were a lot of times where Daniel Gafford could have been used to more of his potential. Derrick Jones Jr. also played great, and I think if they would have given him more touches, then he would have had a bigger impact, as he was the only positive player in terms of plus minus in the starting lineup. And PJ Washington had a bad game, which is a lot from him because he's been amazing all season and he had some clutch plays down the stretch. I believe that Jaden Hardy is a guy who should get more minutes, and having this bad of a game from your players and still being able to only lose by 5 points is something remarkable in my opinion. Like, I do think that Dallas have finally figured out how to win their playoff games, and I do think that Jason Kidd is very comfortable with the matchup that they have against the Timberwolves. I just believe that now it's Dallas in 5, and they should try to, get it done as quickly as they can. I believe that it has become a real conversation point for the league to talk about these things, to talk about the way that these teams are moving. But when it comes to these two teams, I do not believe that the Timberwolves can win against the Celtics in the finals. I believe the Timberwolves are great, and they played great in this game, but they needed a valiant effort from everybody to just have a shot at winning this game by 5 points. And Luka still made that ridiculous point in the fourth quarter. Cat made those 4 threes, and if it weren't for that heroic effort, they would have not won this game. Now, am I saying that they're not reliable? No. And am I saying that Anthony Edwards didn't put the beamers on and wasn't one of the best players? No. But you need a lot of firepower just to win one game. What is it going to take for you to beat the Celtics, which have defense of the wazoo, which have offense of the wazoo, which are one of the best players in the world in Jason Tatum? And in my opinion, I do not think that the Wolves could compete with the Celtics. If they can, then maybe the Mavs are just their kryptonite, right? And maybe I'm wrong, and that's about the end of the story. But I do believe that there is something to be said about this Minnesota team and the way that they've been playing this series. In the end, I do believe what mainly caused Dallas to fail in this game was the fact that they got out-rebounded. Rudy was extremely key, and Anthony Edwards too, as they both had 10 rebounds. And offensive rebounds, even though Dallas had more, I feel like the sheer amount of rebounds that Minnesota was able to secure this game actually helped them a lot more as they got them in key possessions. Now, I do want to speak about that shot that Anthony Edwards made and give him his props. That was an amazing shot. You won them the game, and that's the reality. But I also want to say shout out to the guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which made that 3 from the corner. I want to say shout out to Kyle Anderson for that inbounds pass with Naz Reid, which was what won them the game, literally. I want to say shout out to, the guys from Minnesota because they did not give up. As much as this series could have been in the hands, I like what Anthony Edwards said after the game. We're not getting swept. It doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what we do. We are not getting swept. Because I believe that, okay, you may be in a tough situation. But as a team, it is always a game-by-game thing. It is never about the long run. And as long as you can focus on winning one game at a time, maybe you'll break history. Now, do I believe the Timberwolves could win the rest of the series? Honestly, no. I think that statistics speak for themselves, and if they do, then it's going to be the most miraculous comeback we've ever seen, ever. But if we're being honest, I just believe that the Timberwolves have to be happy for their season. They have to wrap things up, make sure that they're in check, and make sure that even if they're having a tough moment, right, and they're having, after this win, they're kind of out of hopes that they might win, then maybe just get yourself back up on your feet. And remember that winning these games is important because next season you're going to bring your guys back and do the same thing. For Dallas, I just believe it's don't get comfortable. Dallas, this game seemed very comfortable, especially in certain moments. Like, I want to say, Kyrie, you do not have to go for 30, but an efficient 25 would have been good from you, especially in a closeout game. And I do believe that your closeout record was lost because of you. Like, if Kyrie would have did his regular Kyrie thing in that third or fourth quarter, there would have been such a big separation between the Dallas Mavericks and the Timberwolves that it would have not even been funny. But with that being said, I want to congratulate both these teams, and I want to see what happens next.